Okay, so I am going to get started on Purdue OWL. I'm going to walk us through how to do APA citation, okay, in-text citation. So whenever you hear the terminology, you're going to hear two different kinds of terminologies. One that says citations and one that is references, okay? They are all about the same thing, your sources, your resources, your articles, your books, whatever you're using to get information, okay? References are what go in the reference page, okay? Citations are the references that you're referencing in text, okay? So if you see over here, they call them in-text citations, okay? So when I edit papers for you in the future, and I tell you that you need citation, or at the end of a sentence, I put a parenthesis, cite, parentheses, what that means is you need to either pick one of the references you have, make sure you're referencing that, or you need to go find a source to back up what you're saying, okay? So please, and so this is also probably a good day to have like a notebook or a piece of paper, or grab a piece of paper from a friend to write these notes to, because we're gonna go over some different in-text citations, okay? Now, for in-text citations, you need to cite every single sentence that does not come from your own general knowledge or your interpretation of or connection of the material to real life kind of a thing, okay? So so for instance, in like business, when there's collateral or they ask for, reflect upon, and you can use I if an assignment asks for your reflection, how does this apply to your life, things like that. But make sure to double check if a paper is, because APA is has always been a not first person. So you're just stating a student, an employee would do this, those kind of things. APA has not been. Now in the 7th edition, they're finally allowing for first person, but you have to stay consistent, okay? So if you're gonna write in first person, meaning I, me, my, our, us, you have to write the entire paper or section in first person. You can't go from, I would do this, a student would, an individual would. You can't trade back and forth, pick a lane, okay? So guys, I think a lot of times, at least in the past, you've been taught MLA from like high school, okay? MLA, when you cite, apparently you guys were told rarely cite, rarely direct quote. That's not APA, that's not academic, that's not scholarly, okay? I wanna shift your perspective, okay? So really, and I would say especially those of you who are in the psychology program, as well as business, get used to, or I would even shift your mind to cite every sentence. It just really should. What that tells me is that when, as a professor, as someone in academia, someone who is scholarly, who is research oriented, those kind of people, when they read your stuff and you have a lot of these in-text citations, how we view that is, oh my goodness, wow, look how well read and how well researched they are about this subject. Does that make sense? Okay, so I want to shift your perspective about the in-text citations, okay? Now I will tell you, I know like specifically, like Larry does not like having like every sentence, because if he's wanting you to like, okay, here's your resource, and here's what the resource says. Now you interpret. What do you think? How's this impact you? I want my, then you're not going to cite how this affects you, your perspective, your opinion, right? You're going to, we're going to do, next week, we're going to start into what we call paraphrasing. I know you guys have heard that, but most often you guys don't do that. So we're going to actually do some paraphrasing exercises. In-text citations. Okay, who can tell me the difference between a paraphrase and a direct quote?
Paraphrase is like in your words, but what they said, and direct quotes are exactly what they said word for word. Don't alter it at all.
Okay. How will I know, reading your paper, which one's which?
Looking at quotation marks and what is not.
Yeah. And which one goes in quotation marks? Direct quotes, right? Okay. And again, in APA, don't shy away from direct quotes. That's not bad. Though, if you cannot possibly say it in any better way than direct quote, but if you could read this because you're just basically being lazy and you're direct quoting like half your paper, then that's not going to be okay. You really shouldn't direct quote more than 25% of your paper. Yeah.
So, I know, like, whenever you have like a long, like,
Yeah. Block quote. We'll cover that. Yeah.
I didn't know if that was still the same for 6 or 6 and 7.
Yeah, actually, it's still the same. I will double check on that, but.
And then how many is like sentences
that are direct quoted or block quote?
The block quote.
We'll cover that. It's usually about 3 lines. So we'll get into that, but I want to start with just the basic citations, and then we will cover that because that actually will be a requirement in your final paper of having a block quote. Okay. So when you do in your own words, and guys, please hear me, in your own words, paraphrasing is not taking the sentence and simply switching adjectives. Okay. Actually turn it in, we'll catch that. Okay. So what I want you to do, you know how you highlighted your articles? There's a purpose for that, because what I want you were to have read the article and then highlight things that are important, and then how to paraphrase is then reread the highlighted parts, then put the article away. Now tell me what you learned from that. Okay? I think so often the reason why we direct quote or we plagiarize, we kind of in our words, but we just change a few words and then call it our words, okay, is because you don't trust you. You don't think, well, of course you can't write like they do. You're an undergrad. You're not a doctorate. You're not a professor. I don't expect you to word things the way they do. Okay, that's not my expectation. Neither is any of our professors. That's not our expectation on you. Okay, now grammar and sentence structure and punctuation, those are our expectations. Okay, but let's talk about when we are not plagiarizing, when we are paraphrasing, when we are saying something in our own words. Okay, this is how we do an in-text citation. So we're going to click this, do in-text citations off. Let's just go to the basics, okay? First. Okay, sorry, internet is really slow today. Okay, right here, even if you can see, it says, if you are referring to an idea from another work, but not directly quoting the material or making reference to an entire book, article, other works, you have to make reference to the author and the year publication and not the page number in your in-text reference, okay? So you are only going to need if you are, you do not need to put the page number if you are paraphrasing, okay? So here is your sentence. Ooh, such a great sentence, okay? Then you're going to author's last name, okay? So do you have one of your authors or whatever that's, so let's say last name of your author. I don't know why I was having trouble thinking of how to spell my last name. And then the year of the publication. So what year was it written? Okay. And then period. Okay. You don't put you only put the last name. Even though in your references it's White House JL and then 2014 blah, 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 you only put the last name. Only put the last name. Okay? And the year it was published. If it's like June 20th, 2018, you're only putting 2018. Okay? Now this is when there are authors. Okay? I'm just wanting to make sure real quick. Okay, I am going to, so if you see right here, this according to Jones, 1998, yes, sir.
Well, how can you do that and have like an out?
We will cover that. We will get there. Yeah, that'll be next. I'm going to just talk about the when we do have the authors, what to do with that. Now, let's say you have multiple, okay? So you have Jones, Smith, and okay, and then you're going to do that. Does that make sense? Okay, so you put it just like you would, like in there, you're just not including the initial, just the last names. Okay. Now, please write this in your notes. You can do this and write this way. This is not best practice. Okay. This, according to Jones, 2018. Okay. That's not, now the only, okay, blah, blah. That's not the best way to say, because obviously it's according to Jones, because it's at the end of the sentence. You don't need to tell me, according to Smith, according to, you know, Guggenheimer, according to, you know, White House, according to, because it's just, it becomes redundant, and you refrain, please take note of this. Do not write about you researching. So according to the research, that's creative writing. That's that MLA. That's the, according, if you read it and you could do Shakespeare, you know it's not APA. According to da, 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 then that's not good APA. Okay? Refrain, stop starting a sentence with according to. That's creative writing. That's publishing. It's good writing for publishing because it's good sentence flow. Outside of that, it's not the best practice. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the one time, the times that would be okay is if the source is the like of the information. So according to Harvard Business Review, according to Bill Gates, according to Brene Brown, okay, those people who are like the in your field or what you're writing about, well, then that is like, oh, that person says that. Then that is, but if Jones, 1998, who gives a crap? I don't even know Jones. Does that make sense? Okay. It's still not best practice, but then it's like you're trying to, if your attempt or your purpose is to drive home that like the most knowledgeable person or the most like sought after research and information in your field is this, then that's a good way to do it. Yes.
So if, we use the one Bill Gates,
Yes.
like, you want the name Bill Gates,
You would want to do Bill Gates because just Gates. Are you talking about Chris? Right. So because it's, if I just said Brown 2017 stated, that doesn't mean anything to me. But if you stated Brene Brown stated, then it's like, oh, okay. You know?
is that the same with like the parentheses?
No. Okay. So this is a good, so what I put here is always going to be what I look for in my reference page. Okay. So you know how your reference page is like this, right? Hanging indent. Okay. You have this all here. Okay. We got, here's a source, here's a source, here's a source. Are we tracking with me? Okay. This right here is what has to be in the citation. So if here's my sentence and here is my author, this right here better be what's the first thing right here. Okay. And so that goes to the article title. You know, Facundo, you asked about the article title. What you would put in is, instead of the author's name, you would put to begin with, but there's some special nuances. So we're not there yet because we do that a little different, but it's whatever right here. So if I were to say, you know how I said, according to Harvard Business Review, well, if Harvard Business Review is not this very first thing, I can't do this. Because what this tells me is the reference starts with Jones, and I'm going to see the year right there. Because I better see this and go directly to my reference page, and I'm going to look for Jones. Okay? So if I say according to Harvard Business Review, and there's no H, there's no Harvard in here, and I have to look more into over here, that's going to be incorrect.
That's when they're
Yeah. So the purpose of a citation, stop writing about the research article. Like if you were to hold up the piece of paper, your article you printed out, don't talk about the paper, talk about the information. And this tells me if I care about who wrote it or anything else about it or what journal it came out of, I can go look it up. Okay? Tell me, this is, APA is meat and potatoes. APA is meat and potatoes. It's just the core. Just give me the information. Don't tell me, while researching, this was found through a lot of research, according to just tell me the information. Does that make sense? Okay. If I care or anyone else cares, then they can, yep, I knew that was gonna happen. If anyone else cares, then they can go find the information and where it came from, okay? So so now go to, and your Purdue OWL, go back up to in-text citations, author and authors. Hopefully my screen will come back up. This is really where you will want to stick, will want to stay. Okay, to do in citing non, so it shows you how to do both ways. Just know that this is always the more preferable way, okay? The more preferable way is this. And this always goes at the end of the sentence. And the punctuation always goes at the end of the parentheses, except for in block quotes, but we'll get there, okay? So now this is a work by 1 to 2 authors, 2 authors here, 3 or more, okay? List only the first author's name followed by et al. In every citation, even the first, okay? So if I have 2 authors, then I'm always going to put Smith and Jones, Whitehouse and Farrell, okay? I'm always going to put both authors. But if I have 3 or more, I'm going to put Whitehouse et al., meaning Whitehouse and all the others, Smith and all the others, okay? Does that make sense? Every single time, okay? And you do, every single sentence. Like, you know, MLA teaches you write the paragraph, and at the end of the paragraph, cite. Oh, I don't know what sentences came from that. I shouldn't have to guess. Every single sentence, that information that after you read that article, even if it's like, oh yeah, I knew that, but it reminded you, or the information came from that article in any form or fashion, cite that article. And again, it helps. If you write a sentence like, well, for someone to be successful, they should do da 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 da. If I say, I don't agree with you, but you have a citation that says like someone's gave you that information, I can't argue with that. I can still think it's dumb, but I can't argue with you. But if you say something should be, must, needs to be, all these kind of things, I can't argue if you have a citation because someone agrees with you. Someone is backing up that statement, regardless of how weird it is. Yeah. Unless, let's say, I think Freddie, it might have been you that had a lot of the same articles that they at least were from the same place. Like, yeah, I think he had like the restaurant ones. Yeah. So let's say he has 2 articles that are written by the same author. Now it's, let's say, Carter and Williams. And then the other one is Carter and James. Well, then let's say that there's a lot of other authors. You're gonna write Carter, comma, James, comma, et al. Okay? You're gonna write until the distinctiveness to determine which one am I talking about.
Even if it's not the same author, but it's a company. So like say it's like 2.
Oh, like
2 different people.
Like Abraham Smith versus Bob Smith. We're gonna hope that there's a different year, different date. That's never happened. It's a good question. I would maybe say at that point, it would be okay to put the first initial. Yeah. Do you have that as an issue? Or just in theory? In the past? Okay. Yeah. I would say maybe that just to determine distinguish the difference. So this gives you an example of what I'm talking about. When all of these people, like they're different, then you're going to like write up to where it's different. So Jones, Smith, Liu, and Jones, Smith, Ruiz et al. Does that make sense? Okay. So that tells me that there's more. And actually, so I want you to see a very interesting difference here. Do you see there's Jones, Smith, Ruiz, comma, et al.? That actually tells me there's more than those. And up here, there's Kernis et al. That just tells me that there's three or more. But this tells me with a comma before, tells me that it's just a difference of like these are similar, but there's the rest are different as well. So yeah, I'm gonna start this direction, go this way.
So would you prefer for us to put just the first last name on the at all, or just put like 3 on the?
It's not preferred. It's if you have every author is different, then APA says you just put the first author and then et al. But if you have like where there's
So we have just 3, we put the 3 authors.
no. If you have 3 or more, you just put the first last name and then et al.
Okay.
Okay? 3 or more. The only time you would put more than this is because if you see, I have 2 articles that Jones and Smith both wrote these, but they had other people, see? But if I just put Jones, I can't tell the difference. I don't know which article you're referring to. So if both of these articles, because they're both the same year. Now, if this was 2019 and this is 2020, then I would just do Jones et al. 2020, Jones et al. 2019. Because then I would tell by the date which one's which. But if they both start with Jones and they're both the same year, then I would list them out until it distinguishes which article is different. Does that make sense? Okay.
In the reference page, we have the 5 and 6 outer screen, let's put them all.
No. Okay.
We can put it all.
So whenever, so in the reference page, you put them all. And in text citation, if there's three or more authors, you only put the initial, the very first last. It's a weird way to say that. The first last name. So if there's Jones, Smith, Walters, and Whitehouse, you're only going to put Jones et al. Okay? I know that's really confusing. I'm just giving you all of the what if situations. If you only have one article in your reference page is by Jones and Smith and Walters and Craig, then you're going to only put Jones. But if you have Jones, Walters, and Jones, Walters, 2 articles, then you need to distinguish by putting the other authors or the different dates. Does that make sense? I just need to know which article you're talking about. Okay? Now, let's say, so we're still on this same thing. So let's say this is Jones, and there's only one author, and it's 2020, okay? And this is Jones, 2020, okay? How do I can't even distinguish, okay, which article I'm talking about. This is, if I have 2 articles and they're the only author, or Jones and Smith wrote these articles. What I do is, in the reference page, I put A and B. So then in my in-text citation, here's my sentence, and then I'm going to do Smith, oh, whoops, Jones. Now I forget which fake name I'm using. So then I do Jones 2020 B. And then I know when I'm reading, I know you're referring to this article. Okay. So let's say like Bill Gates or John MacArthur or Brene Brown or someone wrote 2 books in the same year. Okay, and I'm referencing both because if I'm going to research shame, I'm going to research Brene Brown. And let's say she wrote 2 books in a year. Well, then it's Brown 2018 and Brown 2018. Well, I need to distinguish who's reading it, which book I'm actually talking about. That would be a circumstance in which I would need to do that. Does that make sense? Okay. That is, sorry, that is all of that's pretty the basics of what you're going to be at with when you have an article or a book, okay? When you have a last name, okay? Now, when you have in your reference, when you have the article title, when you have how to become successful. Okay, and then you have the okay, that's your reference. Okay, that's your reference page because you don't have an author. Okay, so in your here's your sentence, and at the end of your sentence, what you're going to do is, and this is dumb, this is just dumb, but this is just the wonderful way of, so this shows you right here, unknown author. When there's an unknown author, you put it in quotation marks, the title. And you know, in your reference page, you don't capitalize the words. I was really hoping in the 7th edition they would fix this, and they did not. In the in-text citation, you capitalize them. So then, what I mean by that is how, you're never going to capitalize the little words, okay? How to become successful. Okay, successful. Now here is the part that everyone always messes up on. Okay, this is the part that everyone messes up on. Comma, and then quotation marks. Comma, then quotation mark, and then year. So then 2016. Whoop, I ran out of space. Okay, the way I remember it is it's in alphabetical order. A C, the C comes before Q. So comma, like if you were to spell it out, C-O-M-M-A, C comes before Q, quotation mark. That's the only way I could have ever remembered that. So I'm just saying that to help you maybe remember. Comma before quotation mark, okay? This is something that so many people right here mess up on. The comma and then quotation mark, okay? But make sure that these are capitalized. It's not in your reference page, but you do here. I don't make the rules. I don't understand. I don't get it. I think it's dumb, but we still have to abide by it. Yeah.
In the case, the title is too long, like,
Oh,
ending text.
okay. So great question. It doesn't matter how long it is. You do need to write it all out until the colon. So if my title is how to become successful, 10 steps, and then there's like colon, 10 steps to blah, 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 and it's super long, I'm only going to do up to the colon.
And if it doesn't have
Then you do at least the first 3 words, 3 to 4 words. Okay? Yeah, you don't have to use the full. If it's like, that's only 4 words, you can use the 4 words. But don't just put how to. Okay? But 3 to 4 words, especially if there's a really long title and there's not a colon. Usually if there's a colon, write it clearly. If there's 8 words till the colon, write out the first 3 to 4. Enough that would give me make sure that because let's say you start writing your first chapter and you have only one article that says how to become successful, whatever. Well, then when you write your second chapter, you have a how to become the best at. And so then in your first chapter, you wrote how to become. Well, and then on your second chapter, well, now you can't do how to become because now you have 2 articles that are how to become. So that's where sometimes 3 to 4 gives me the gist of what your article title is. Okay. Is that helpful? Okay. Last thing. Okay. So what happens in my reference when there's a no date? Okay, and here's the rest of my reference. Okay, how to become successful. Well, then I'm just going to do the same thing here. So comma, quotation mark, and then ND. Okay, so I'm gonna, I don't know if you can see that, David. But all I'm going to do is, so if there's, here's my sentence, and at the end of the sentence, I do Jones, and there's not a date for it, then I'm just doing this, and then I end, okay? Now, you're not going to put, let's say, some of you have, like how to become, or you have a question mark in your title. You don't include any punctuation, okay? It's just a comma, okay? And just FYI, in APA, you don't write questions. You state, everything in APA is statements, okay? So there's never going to be, what would make someone a successful entrepreneur? You're not going to write that. Again, if I could state it in a Shakespearean way, you're not writing it. That's not APA. State, to someone who is inquisitive about becoming a successful entrepreneur, they would need to, does that make sense? So make things into statements. There's not ever a question. You can state things as a inquisitive kind of thing, but you're not, just know in APA, if you ever write a question mark, 99.9% of the time, you're going to get it marked wrong. Okay? Yes?
Because in the short quotation part, it says, Jones, 1998, start from 2050, style info, and then it says page name.
Okay, for direct quotes, yeah. We just haven't got to the direct quotes yet. Yeah. Yeah. Again, that's why we don't, we try to always just put the author and the year together. It's just easier. But these are all for paraphrasing. This is when you write in your own words.
Well, but the question after the quote.
Right. So there is the aspect of in here, they're also writing for publication purposes. As a student level, students in academia, so even in dissertations, you can't write questions. Like even the research question. So in my seniors are writing their thesis and research question and hypothesis. Even the research question is always written as a statement. And so, but when you're reading articles, when it becomes like, so Dr. B wrote his dissertation, but when it goes into a publication thing for like a book, then it becomes a little bit more, you can be a little bit more reader friendly to the public if he so desires. I think he still wrote it for academia purposes, so there would never be questions. Okay? Yeah.
You said no punctuation. Does that also include reference page?
Oh no, in the reference pages, you put like if they have a quote, a question mark, if they have an exclamation mark, you put that. You don't put like the little asterisk-y thingies, you don't put like little cute fun things, unless like, you probably shouldn't pick an article if it has a curse word in it. But like if those symbols are in place of letters, you would put those symbols. But that would probably tell you it's probably not like a quality article to use. Okay. Okay. Is everyone tracking thus far? This is, all of this right here was for paraphrasing. So when you put things in your own words, when you've gleaned information from these articles, that's all what you do. Okay. This tells me that this is the sentence, these sentences are in your own words. Hear me. This kind of citations tell me that these sentences are in your own words. Now, if I go and search, or I put your, if I turn your paper into turnitin.com and these pop up as direct quotes, you have plagiarized, thus earning yourself a 0 on the paper. Okay? Don't be afraid to direct quote if you cannot say it or write it any better than that original author. Okay? When it is direct quotes, this is all you have to do. Page 14. Okay? Now let's say it's like half this page, half that page. So then you would do PP 14 through 15. Okay? That's right there tells me that there's direct quotes around this sentence. That this is word for word copied and pasted from the article into your paper, which is fine. Okay? If it's like Joe ran up the mountain to climb or get something, that shouldn't be direct quoted. Because, like, well, I don't know how you're gonna say it better, but like, don't put silly things. Make sure. Now, if there's a list of things, those are good reasons to direct quote. Because if you're gonna put a list of the qualities that make for a good graduate student or a good CPA, I'm sorry, but that's not a, you're literally going to just give different adjectives. It's a list, just direct quote the list. You don't need to put, you can't put that in better words. That's not a you issue. That's just a not necessary, or that's not good, right? Don't work that hard. That's just silly. Okay? Now, what happens if you like, Freddie, I'm going to use yours again. So when you have that article, those articles about the restaurant, well, there's not page, I mean, there is kind of page because you printed it out. But if you, on your quality articles that you're literally scrolling on the website, you don't know what page, okay? Because you printed it out, you have pages, but if I'm looking on the screen, I don't have pages, right? So what do? So then you have, so you have the year. Now, if it's an online source, or whatever. Now I'm gonna do paragraph 42. Okay, that's excessive. You're probably like, paragraph, let's just be nice. Paragraph 4, okay? Now, how you count paragraphs, frankly, it doesn't, like, it's an estimate. So basically, if I were to count, here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, here's 4, here's 5. Basically, you know how articles kind of have breaks? You know, in there, whenever there's like a break, just count that as a paragraph. It's meant to give me an estimate of where in the paper I could generally look to make sure you did direct quote that correctly. Yes.
If there is a quotation in the article, you count that as a paragraph. Have you seen that you have a paragraph and someone they like quote something and then they start another paragraph?
Like the author did?
Yeah.
So like they're quoting someone else?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's a whole different ballgame. Way to make things complicated. Okay. So now that is actually when you want, it's going to be easier to do this. So you're going to do, as Jones stated, and here's my direct quote, okay? Here's my direct quote, and then as cited in Brown 2020 page or paragraph 14. Okay, so this is who originally, so Facundo, so this is who originally stated it. Okay, so this is actually, when I want to cite someone who's like super old, like the classics of something, so let's say like as Freud, because you're not finding any Freud's work in the last 10 years. It should, praise Jesus. Okay, but let's say, so as Freud in 1947 stated, as cited in the current article I'm looking in. So it means this current article cited Freud. Does that make sense? So that's when this right here, but do you see as Jones stated, as Freud, that I'm not saying according to, Is that okay? I know I went over in time, but hopefully that gives you, now for your homework, I'm gonna change up your syllabus just a tad, okay? For your citation, what you're gonna be doing, well, first off, I'm gonna give you some worksheets on just references, okay? But I'm gonna open all of these up equally right today, but I'm going to give different due dates. So look at the due date on your Canvas, not on your syllabus, okay? But like here's all your information. Some of this you're gonna use, some of it you won't, okay? So you're gonna write your reference according to APA 7th edition. And then, do you notice this is a direct quote? So direct quote needs what? A page number or a paragraph number. So, okay, do you see this? Here are the pages of the article, but the quote page is from 172, okay? If in some of the information, if it just gives you the page numbers, but not the direct quote page, pick a page. Don't put them all, pick a page, okay? So yeah, so you're gonna write in parentheses. So you're gonna, they already have the period here, but make sure I would just encourage you to, like, you know, you're gonna be typing this in, but making sure that that period is in there, okay? Okey-dokey. We will work, I'm gonna have one of your references assignments due on Monday. But these citation ones, we're gonna go through on Monday just to make sure that we're all on the same page, okay? Okay. Have a good rest of your day.